Stay there, Elaine. I want to bring in Karen Lumley, the Conservative MP for Redditch. Morning, Karen.
Good morning, Adrian.
What do you make of the fact that so many people now have fallen into rent arrears following the introduction of this spare room subsidy?
I think Elaine's pointed out what I wanted to point out straight away, is that, the government has made 190 million available to support vulnerable people to stay in their own homes. But, let's be clear, Adrian, if you lived in private rented accommodation, then, you would have to pay this anyway. And every week in my surgery, I see people, young families, sometimes 3 children who are living in a 1-bedroom flat, and they want bigger housing. So what do I say to them? No, you can't have that because we haven't built houses. I think people who did buy their own council houses in the 80s aspired to do that as most British people, people who live here do, and I agree with that. I think the problem is that we haven't built any more, and councils should, haven't planned really for the future of all political persuasions, I have to say. But my own council in Redditch, they haven't built council houses for years.
The aim of the spare room subsidy is to cut the housing benefit bill, isn't it? And the only way that would work in a case like Elaine's in the long term would be if Elaine moved into a smaller property. Many areas around the West Midlands, there just aren't those smaller properties to move into. All of our local councils that I've spoken to have said pretty much the same on that, Karen. So, even if people support the aim of the bedroom tax, there isn't the availability of properties to move people into so they can downsize.
Well, if I was the councillor, I used to be a councillor, but if the councils need to look at this, I think, in a little bit of a different way. For example, I'm going to use my own town because that's where I live. We've got office blocks there that could be converted into, homes for people in the town centre, regenerate our town centre, and rent those out to local residents. I don't see anything wrong with doing that, and I think that's a really good way forward. The other way that I don't know whether it's been thought of, but the other way I would think about was, perhaps, I'm not Elaine especially, but people who have 3 or 4 bedroom houses might think, if I don't know if they're allowed to rent out a room. I mean, to get income in to be able to pay the 25 quid.
Let me ask you, Elaine, would you be happy to do that? To sort of, I know the MP, John Hemminger, Yardley MP in Birmingham, has suggested that people in your situation might consider renting out one of your rooms. Would you be willing to do that?
No, I wouldn't be happy really for a stranger to come and live in my house just to pay my bedroom tax. I have my grandchildren stay quite often, so I do need the extra rooms for those when they come to stay. So also the issue of moving into a 1-bedroom place, where are they going to find me this place? All my family, my community, my neighbours, we've all been here a long, long time, nearly 4 decades. So am I going to have to be put into a flat somewhere where I don't know anyone and all my support isn't there? It's not just about bricks and mortar, it's about people's lives.
Let's get a word with David Martin from the Papworth Trust. Obviously, David, these changes to housing benefit don't only affect disabled people, but I suppose you might argue that disabled people are less able to change their circumstances in some cases.
They are, but the situation is about 2/3 of the people who are affected by these benefit changes are disabled. And what we found is our experience of working with lots of people with disabilities is a lot of people do need these spare bedrooms. They might need it for their extra equipment because they're disabled. They might need it for a carer. And I know 1 or 2 people who's, they're married, but one of the partners will fit or have suffer something because of their condition. So the partner who's doing all that caring for almost 24 hours a day just wants a few hours where they can go and get a bit of peace and quiet and get a bit of decent shut-eye.
Yeah, although, Karen and both the case study of Elaine as well has shown that there are these discretionary payments available. Elaine is receiving a discretionary payment. She's had to make her case as a disabled person. So as long as local authorities have that money and can offer assistance to people, well, where's the problem?
That would be great if there was enough money in the pot. The government has been generous about putting more money into the pot, but what we're finding is that local councils are actually favouring able-bodied people rather than disabled people. But the reality is for disabled people, as you've just been talking with Elaine and with Karen, there's no alternatives. There's no 1-bedroom accessible homes. And if you're going to get somebody who's living in an accessible home, and shift them to somewhere else, which is 1 bedroom rather than 2 bedroom, that will cost you and me and the other taxpayers who are listening now probably about 25,000 quid. It doesn't make sense. So we think there's probably got to be a better solution.
Yeah. Karen Lumley, in summing it up then, I mean, you've heard the figures, you've heard some of the complaints. Do you think that the spare room subsidies is something the government should and will continue to press on with to cut the housing benefit bill?
Well, I think we will continue to press on with it. You know, we're talking £24 billion, the housing benefit bill, and we're talking of 375,000 families living in overcrowded accommodation. So it's two-pronged here, agents, and it's got to be done about that. So, you know, we can't expect that people to continue living like that. And I think it's innovative ideas of what's needed. I always think that actually, you know, renting out a room would help, and that would, you know, go some way to sorting it out. I also think that councils have got to look at what they own and what they can do with it, and try and make sure that they, in these very difficult, challenging times, are able to convert some of their stuff into homes. And I don't think that's unreasonable to ask them to do that, and you know, that's my council to do.
Karen, thanks very much indeed for joining us, the Conservative MP for Redditch. Thanks also to David Martin from the Papworth Trust and Elaine North. I'll throw it over to you. I mean, the figures